So you have understood the definition. So what are the features of monistic theory of sovereignty? What are the features of the monistic theory of sovereignty? The features of monistic theory of sovereignty is point number 1. Only a state is sovereign. Fine. So a state's authority is absolute. A state is the only source of law. A state is the only source of law. Fourth, sovereignty is absolute, indestructible, cannot be shared, permanent, inalienable, cannot be taken away. These are some characteristics of the sovereignty. Fine. Now, more than the characteristics of sovereignty, our purpose is to understand the negative consequences. Fine. So write it down. Negative consequences of monistic theory. So once monistic theory had its utility because it ended the confusion that was prevailing in the medieval Europe, but later on it started showing its negative consequences because the entire authority was concentrated in the hands of the state. The states became territorial, dictatorial. Fine. So it provided support for the states turning dictatorial. Fine. No regard for any other authority or even international law. So people interpreted the sovereignty means, or the leaders interpreted sovereignty of the state means freedom to do whatever they want to do. Fine. They turned dictatorial. They just overlooked international law. They started ruling whimsically, and the problem became more acute when especially you can say problem became more acute with the rise of authoritarian leaders, authoritarian dictatorial leaders like Hitler, Mussolini, and they started misusing the concept of state sovereignty to justify their whimsical actions. Complete disregard for the human rights, complete disregard for international peace. So acute with the rise of authoritarian leaders, authoritarian leaders. Fine. Here you can write Mussolini completely disregarded international law, used to say that nothing above the state, nothing beyond the state. So it was realized, because of such views, ultimately world has to see the wars, and it was realized that there is a need to limit the sovereignty of the state. Fine. So there is a need to limit the sovereignty of the state. Okay. So limiting the sovereignty of the state in the interest of international peace, that the initiatives like establishment of United Nations, European Union started. These initiatives can be seen as based on the pluralistic idea of the state sovereignty. Fine. So emerged the pluralistic idea. Fine. So what are the essential themes in pluralism? What are the essential themes in pluralism? Pluralism का essential theme क्या है? What are the essential theme in pluralism? So first of all, pluralism emerges from the need to limit the authority of the state. When the importance of a state in the life of man should be reduced, there is a need to limit the authority of the state, because unlimited authority of the state may result into wars, violation of human rights. If you accept the unlimited authority of the state can very easily violate the rights of minorities, and it can assert itself that it is right. It goes to the extent of doing anything. So this is the essential theme, to limit the authority of the state. Now, how to limit the authority of the state? How to limit the authority of the state? So take away the sole authority from the state and distribute it among others. How to limit the authority of the state is distribute the authority. You can give it to UN, you can give it to EU, you can give it to any other body. Distribute the authority. Okay? So what is the difference? Monistic versus pluralistic. Monistic says centralization of authority in the hands of the state. Fine. So monist means single center. Pluralist means distribution of authority authority. Fine. Means multiple centers. Many or multiple centers. Means only law made by state is not law. Even international law is law. Even customary law is law. Fine. So the pluralistic theory of a state arises from the need to limit the authority of the state, because we have witnessed the negative consequences of the concentration of the authority. Hence, pluralism aims to distribute the authority and does not recognize a state as the only source of law. Right? Thus for pluralism, it is essential to give recognition to other associations as well as reject a state as the single source of law. Rather, recognize the multiple sources of law. Recognize the multiple sources of law. Okay. Right. Thus for pluralists, a state is an association like many other associations, like UN, like SARC, like this. A state is an association. So if you have to answer in one line what is a pluralistic view of the state, you can simply say that according to pluralism, a state is an association like many other associations. Church is an association, UN is an association, fine. So like other associations, a state is also an association. Now, what is association? Write it down. What is association? Right. Association is a body formed by the people for the promotion of their interests. It can be any body. It can be UN, it can be SARC, it can be Human Rights Watch, it can be Amnesty International, it can be Kisan Sangathan, anything. Fine. So state is not more sacred or unique. A state is an association like various other associations. If you have to answer the pluralistic theory of the state in a single statement, then this is the statement, that a state is an association. Okay? And it suggests that state should not be seen as the single source of law. So I hope pluralistic theory is clear. So the pluralistic theory of sovereignty emerges out of the realization of the negative consequences of the monistic theory of the state with respect to international peace and human rights. Okay. Now, what is the source of influence? What is the source of influence from where this idea came. What is the source of influence behind the pluralistic theory of the state? Right? The source of influence behind the pluralistic theory of the state is the concept of authority found in medieval Europe. The concept of authority found in medieval Europe. So what was the concept of authority found in medieval Europe? Right? The concept of authority, yeah, you can write, in medieval Europe we see the pluralistic notion of authority. In medieval Europe we see the pluralistic notion of authority. Underline, what is this pluralistic notion? In medieval Europe, authority was decentralized, distributed. There were multiple centers of authority. There were multiple centers of authority. Right? After Second World War, the expression of pluralism. After Second World War, the expression of pluralism is seen in the establishment of international organizations and regional organizations like European Union. Right? European Union is based on the multiple centers of authority. One state is not determining for monetary policy, there is a different organization. For this policy, there is a different organization. Okay. Now, right, what is the philosophical basis? What is the philosophical basis of pluralistic theory? What is the philosophical basis of pluralistic theory? The philosophical basis is, right, universe is multi-dimensional. Universe is multi-dimensional. Next, man is a part of universe. Universe is multi-dimensional and man is a part of universe. Okay. Next, hence, right, hence man is also multi-dimensional. Hence man is also multi-dimensional. Hence ठीक है, right? Thus, man has multiple needs. Man has multiple needs. Full stop. Single institution cannot fulfill all the needs. Single association cannot fulfill all the needs. Fine. Hence, man deserves, hence, other association deserves a share in obligation. A share in obligation. Hence, man is also multi-dimensional. Now, man is also multi-dimensional means man has multi-dimensional needs. So, all needs of man cannot be fulfilled by the state. ठीक है? Right? Since state cannot fulfill, since a state cannot fulfill all the needs of man, other associations are also needed. Fine. So other associations are also needed, and because they also perform useful function for us, they also deserve they also deserve share in man's obligation. So man is obliged towards the state. Fine. Man's obligation. Man is obliged towards the state, but man is also obliged towards other associations. They also deserve respect. Fine. Next, right, jurists like Dewey and Crabbe gave sociological theory of law. They gave sociological theory of law. So sociological theory of law means a state is not the only source of law. Law originates in societies, customs and traditions. Church has a role, societies, customs and traditions have a role. Fine. So it will be wrong to consider a state as the sole source of law. Okay. Now let us understand the pluralistic theory as given by Lasky. The pluralistic theory of a state as given by Lasky. Pluralistic theory of a state as given by Lasky. Right. Lasky held that, though we have written already, but if you want you can write, you can leave it. Though Lasky held that, Lasky held that it would be of lasting benefit to the discipline of political science if the entire concept of the sovereignty of the state is expunged or thrown out of the discipline. Okay, so Lasky recommends that through the concept of a state's sovereignty, that state is sovereign, other are not, or monistic, out of political theory. Fine. And why? Two things. First thing is because of the harms it has done. Harms in terms of violation of human rights, international peace. And second, it is not, it has become outdated. It has become outdated. Means it is nowhere near to the reality, or you can say not real. So a state is sovereign is just an illusion. In reality, the sovereignty of the state is always compromised. Okay? So first of all, you write that according to Lasky, the discovery of sovereignty in the modern federal states, discovery of Austinian sovereignty in the modern federal states is an impossible misadventure. So he says that because in federal states sovereignty is divided, and once the federal forms of governments have come into existence, and if you try to find out the idea of centralized authority, it will be called as not adventure, misadventure, and even impossible misadventure. Okay. Next, he writes that, Lasky writes that since society is federal, authority should also be federal. Since society is federal, authority should also be federal. What does it mean? Society is federal. Federal means multiple. Likho, right? Meaning of society is federal. Right? Right. Society is federal means society is made up of multiple associations. Society is made up of multiple associations. Society is federal means society is made up of multiple associations. Full stop. Right? As man has a multi-dimensional personality, man's needs are multi-dimensional. A single institution, single association cannot fulfill all the needs. Hence, man has created many associations and not just one association. Man has created many associations and not just one association. Right? The existence of many associations show society is federal. The existence of many associations show society is federal. Okay? Right? Since society is federal, he also recommends authority should also be federal. Authority should also be federal. Means all powers should not be concentrated only in the state. All powers should not be concentrated only in the state. Okay. Next scholar, McIver. Right. According to McIver, there are many associations. There are many associations. Some associations are even prior to the state. Some associations are even prior to the state. For example, church. Right? They neither owe their origin to the state nor dependent on the state. Right? Hence, a state cannot be treated over and above all associations. State cannot be treated over and above all associations. Next, right? McIver held that though a state is a source of law McIver held that though the state is a source of law, yet a source of law, yet a state is also the child of law. Means a state has to act according to the constitution. Though state is a source of law, a state is also the child of law, and a state has to act according to the constitution and not in a whimsical manner. Next slide, he further says that the general will is not the will of the state. Whatever state wants, it's not like that. The general will is not the will of the state, rather the will of the people for the state. The state should not assert that it has a general will, it can do anything, but general will is a will of the people for the state. Why it is a will of the people for the state? Because a state performs useful functions, and not because a state has some supernatural power. So people respect a state not because a state is some supernatural higher authority, but because it fulfills certain functions. Right? Hence he suggests that a state commands, means a state commands respect. A state commands because it serves. A state commands respect because it serves and not otherwise. Right? Thus he gave the concept of service state. A state is an institution to serve the people. A state is supposed to act according to the constitution. A state cannot assert unlimited powers. The powers of the state is to serve the people, and only then it commands the respect. Okay, so this is how they are trying to undermine the importance of the state, weaken the authority of the state. Now, right, critical evaluation of pluralist theory. Critical evaluation of pluralist theory. Right? The pluralist theory of the state is an important development in the theories of the state. The pluralist theory of the state is an important development in the theories of the state. Right? It was recognized and became the basis for the growth of regional organizations, international organizations, international law. Right? Though at present, once again, there is a resurgence of the state sovereignty, specifically after COVID crisis. Right? Pluralistic theory contributed for the development of peace and stability. Right? Despite its utility, pluralistic theory suffers from certain defects. Despite its utility, it suffers from certain defects. What are the defects? Defects is inconsistent. This theory is inconsistent, but fine. Inconsistency is not such a problem as the utility. Inconsistent. Fine. Why inconsistent? Right. On one hand, want to weaken the state. They want to weaken the state, but unlike anarchists who end the state, anarchists have no problem, consistent, they don't like a state, they end it. But pluralists have problem with the state, yet they keep it. But unlike anarchists who end the state, pluralists retain the state. So pluralists are uncomfortable with the state, but still they do not end the state. So pluralists retain the state, right? However, because of unique function performed by the state. What is a unique function performed by the state? Dispute resolution. Unique function performed by the state, that is dispute resolution, state gains prominence automatically. State gains prominence automatically. Fine. So they have a problem with the state. They don't want to give prominence with the state, but they don't destroy the state. But because of the specific functions state perform, state itself comes into prominence, right? This inconsistency can be seen in the ideas. This inconsistency can be seen in the work of Lasky himself. Lasky himself, right? On one hand, he suggests that authority should be federal. On the other hand, he also writes that a state is a keystone of social architecture. A state is a keystone. So society is made up of many associations, but a state is the most important association. And a state gains importance because of its role. So that is why it is called as inconsistent. Fine. So right, that is why it is said that the pluralists want to keep the cake and have it too. You can't have both the two things. There is an inconsistency, but inconsistency is not a problem. Inconsistency is fine. So far, there is a relevance of the theory. So I think that's all for today. Thank you.